The day the Moraxian ships appeared in the skies above Earth began like any other Tuesday morning. Colonel Elena Reyes of the United Earth Defense Force had just finished her morning coffee when the emergency alarms blared throughout the base. The massive alien vessels materialized beyond Mars' orbit, their hulls gleaming with an otherworldly metal that seemed to absorb rather than reflect sunlight. Television broadcasts worldwide interrupted regular programming as governments scrambled to respond to the unprecedented event. Colonel Reyes rushed to the command center where chaos had already taken hold. Military officers shouting into phone screens displaying the approaching fleet satellite imagery, revealing vessels larger than anything humans had constructed. Admiral Chen motioned for Reyes to join him at the central display, the holographic projection showing the alien armada arranged in perfect geometric patterns too precise to be coincidental. "They call themselves the Moraxian Empire," the admiral said, his voice unnaturally calm. "Given the circumstances, they want to speak with Earth leadership in 1 hour." The United Nations Security Council convened an emergency session while scientists desperately attempted to establish communication protocols. The Moraxian transmission came precisely when promised, their timing exact to the millisecond. Commander Jolak appeared on screens worldwide, his humanoid form covered in iridescent scales, his eyes 4 vertical slits that glowed with amber light. When he spoke, the translation software struggled to keep pace with his unusual speech patterns. "People of Earth," the alien commander began, "we represent the Moraxian Dominion rulers of 17 star systems. We have studied your world for decades and determined it suitable for integration into our empire." Colonel Reyes watched from the Pentagon war room, her eyes narrowing as she observed the alien technology visible in the background of the transmission. Something about their ship controls seemed oddly familiar despite their obvious advancement. "You will surrender your planetary resources and accept protectorate status," the alien continued, his voice devoid of emotion, "or you will face complete annihilation. You have 1 Earth week to submit your formal acceptance. Our terms are non-negotiable." Global panic erupted immediately. Stock markets collapsed. Religious leaders called for calm or proclaimed the end times. Military forces worldwide mobilized without clear directives. Governments issued contradictory statements, some calling for resistance, others for immediate surrender. While world leaders argued, Colonel Reyes slipped away to her private office. Something about the Moraxian technology nagged at her consciousness. She accessed classified research files on experimental quantum communication systems abandoned by Earth scientists a decade earlier due to inherent instabilities. The similarities were striking despite their obvious technological superiority. The Moraxians used quantum entanglement principles, remarkably similar to those Earth had explored and rejected. She began compiling notes, her mind racing with possibilities. Where humans saw fatal flaws in these systems, the Moraxians had somehow standardized them. That night, while the Secretary General prepared Earth's response, Reyes broke into a secured research facility beneath MIT campus. Amit Sharma's laboratory contained the last working prototype of the failed quantum network. As she activated the old system, Reyes watched the patterns fluctuate on screen. The Moraxian broadcast had contained the same oscillation patterns, the same frequency signatures. Their advanced technology shared the same fundamental architecture as Earth's abandoned experiments. For the first time since the alien ships appeared, Colonel Reyes smiled. They might have perfected the technology, but the underlying vulnerabilities would remain, she realized. If the Moraxians had standardized these systems across their entire fleet, it might just give Earth the opening it needed. She reached for her secure phone. Earth would not be surrendering after all. Colonel Reyes moved through the crowded hallways of the Pentagon 3 days after the Moraxian ultimatum. World leaders still argued over surrender terms, while the alien ships maintained their perfect formation beyond Mars' orbit. She entered the abandoned storage facility she had requisitioned as an unofficial command center, where 3 civilians awaited her arrival, none of them with proper security clearance, all of them essential to her desperate plan. Dr. Amit Sharma paced nervously, his disheveled appearance and wattled hair marking him as the stereotypical eccentric genius. He had been fired from MIT after claiming quantum entanglement could be weaponized, a theory the scientific community had ridiculed. Xu Lin sat perfectly still, her focus entirely on multiple screens displaying code sequences. She had spent 4 years in federal prison for exposing government security flaws, before being quietly recruited by intelligence agencies as a consultant. Marcus Williams, the most visibly uncomfortable, leaned against a wall, his muscular frame and watchful eyes betraying his special forces background before he left military service to establish the most successful private space mining operation in Earth history. "I brought you here because each of you sees problems differently," Reyes began. "The Moraxians demand our answer in 4 days, and our governments are preparing surrender documents." She activated the holographic display, showing the Moraxian fleet configuration followed by communication intercepts and energy readings from their ships. Sharma moved closer to the display, his eyes widening. "They use a perfectly synchronized quantum network," he whispered. "All their ships communicate instantaneously through entangled particles, standardized across their entire civilization." "That's impossible," Lin interrupted. "That architecture would be catastrophically vulnerable to cascade failures. One disruption would spread instantly through the entire system." "Exactly," Reyes nodded. "The Moraxians evolved as a collective consciousness. Their technology reflects that mindset. They value perfect uniformity above all else." Williams frowned, watching the alien ships move in perfect coordination like a single organism. "They see our diversity as weakness." He realized our competing systems, our endless arguments, our technological incompatibilities. The room fell silent as the implication became clear. Their greatest strength could be their greatest vulnerability. Sharma said slowly, "They literally cannot conceive that anyone would build incompatible systems on purpose." Lin began typing furiously, bringing up research on earthly communication networks. "We could create 1,000 different attack vectors. They would try to counter each individually, not understanding they were designed to work together." Williams nodded thoughtfully. "I could retrofit my mining drones with conflicting stealth technologies, not to hide completely, but to confuse their sensors, each drone appearing as something slightly different." The team worked through the night, analyzing Moraxian communication patterns, their perfect symmetry, their total standardization, their complete lack of redundant systems or fallback protocols, everything built on the assumption of perfect order. By dawn, they had the outline of an audacious plan, Operation Babel, named after the biblical tower, where language was confused, a fitting metaphor for what they intended to do to the alien network. Their planning session was interrupted when Marcus received an alert on his private channel. Moraxian scout ships were approaching his lunar mining facility. Apparently, they had noticed unusual activity. "We need more time," Sharma protested. "We need at least 2 more days to prepare the quantum disruptors." "We don't have 2 days," Reyes decided. "We launch now, or we lose our only chance." As world leaders prepared formal surrender documents, Colonel Reyes and her unlikely team activated their countermeasures. Humanity would not go quietly. They would fight using their greatest strength, the very chaos and unpredictability the Moraxians despised. The first phase of Operation Babel began as thousands of mining drones silently moved toward the alien fleet, the Moraxians never expecting an attack from a species they considered already defeated. The mining drones moved silently through space, disguised as ordinary debris, their propulsion systems modified to mimic random drift patterns, while the Moraxian fleet maintained its perfect formation, unaware of the approaching threat. Inside the makeshift command center, Colonel Reyes coordinated with hackers, military specialists, and engineers worldwide, each group developing different approaches to disrupt the alien network, none of them aware of what the others were creating, deliberately compartmentalized to maximize unpredictability. Sharma worked frantically in what had once been a janitor closet, his prototype quantum disruptors, using principles the Moraxians had long abandoned as inefficient. He had cannibalized 3 particle accelerators and an NRI machine to build devices that operated on seemingly random frequencies. "The science makes no sense," he muttered as he calibrated the final device. "It should be completely unstable, yet somehow it works." Across the room, Xu Lin finalized her polymorphic code designed to evolve in ways even she could not predict, the algorithms modeled on viral mutation patterns rather than logical programming structures. It will look like noise to their systems, she explained to the military cryptographers watching her work, but the noise contains patterns that will trigger their auto-correction protocols, just not in ways they can predict. Meanwhile, at his lunar facility, Marcus Williams retrofitted the mining drones with a hodgepodge of mismatched technologies, some equipped with electromagnetic pulse generators, others with quantum signal amplifiers, others with nothing but reflective surfaces designed to create signal echoes. Reyes monitored global communications as world leaders prepared to meet the Moraxian deadline in 24 hours. The aliens continued broadcasting the same message, repeating their demands with mechanical precision, clearly expecting full compliance. A priority alert flashed on her screen. Moraxian scout vessels had accelerated toward Earth, their trajectory suggesting they had detected unusual activity. Launch now, Reyes commanded. All units deploy immediately. Operation Babel is active. Across Earth, underground facilities activated, sending contradictory commands to satellite space stations and orbital platforms, creating a chaotic web of signals heading toward the Moraxian fleet from all directions. The mining drones activated simultaneously, their diverse technologies creating a bewildering array of signatures on Moraxian sensors, some appearing as communication beacons, others as debris, others as nothing at all. Aboard the Moraxian command ship, Commander Zolek received the first error, reports minor system fluctuations, nothing concerning, yet the standardized correction protocols activated automatically to restore perfect order. The first wave of drones reached the outer perimeter of the alien fleet, broadcasting Davar Sharma's chaotic quantum signals directly into their communication network, creating minute disruptions that the Moraxian systems immediately attempted to correct. Each correction created new vulnerabilities that CS evolving code exploited, propagating through their system like a virus that changed every time they identified it. More error reports flooded the Moraxian command center as ship after ship experienced cascading system failures, their perfect uniformity becoming their downfall as every correction attempt spread new disruptions throughout the fleet. Zolek watched in growing confusion as his ships began reporting contradictory information, some detecting massive Earth fleets where others saw nothing, some weapon systems activating without authorization, some navigation computers calculating impossible trajectories. The humans are surrendering, he reminded his officers, yet something was happening, something that made no logical sense. The collective consciousness of the Moraxian fleet began experiencing something they had never encountered before. Doubt. On Earth, Colonel Reyes watched the Moraxian communication channels fracture their perfect coordination, breaking down as individual ships began responding differently to the cascade of conflicting information. The first phase of Operation Babel had succeeded. Now came the real test. Would the aliens adapt, or would they break? The Moraxian command ship shuddered as auxiliary power systems failed across multiple decks. Commander Zolek watched in growing alarm as status reports flooded in from across his once perfect fleet, each message contradicting the last, each solution creating new problems. This cannot be happening, he thought. Their primitive technology should not be capable of affecting our networks, yet the evidence was undeniable. Their systems were compromised in ways their engineers had never anticipated. On the International Space Station, now serving as Earth's impromptu military command center, Colonel Reyes monitored the unfolding chaos. Her unlikely team gathered around display screens showing the Moraxian fleet in disarray. "It's working," Sharma whispered, watching the energy fluctuations from the alien ships. "Their quantum network is trying to correct the errors, but each correction creates a new vulnerability for CS code to exploit." Lynn nodded, her fingers dancing across keyboards as she released new variants of her polymorphic algorithms. "They keep trying to find patterns in our attack, but there are no patterns to find. Each intrusion is unique." A warning klaxon blared as the station's sensors detected energy buildup within the Moraxian fleet. Several of their largest vessels were charging weapons systems despite the system failures. They realized something is wrong. Williams warned they're going to attack early before their systems completely fail. True to his prediction, massive energy beams erupted from the Moraxian vessels, aimed at Earth's major cities, but the weapons fired at incorrect coordinates, some missing the planet, entirely others striking empty ocean, others colliding with their own scout ships. The Moraxian attack had failed spectacularly, their perfect coordination shattered by Operation Babel. Several of their ships collided as navigation systems received contradictory commands, creating a domino effect of destruction that rippled through their formation. On Earth, billions of people watched the night sky light up with explosions visible, even from the ground, as Moraxian ships destroyed each other in their confused state. Global news networks broadcast images of the alien fleet in chaos, sparking spontaneous celebrations in cities worldwide. "It's time for Phase 2 rise," commanded every nation with orbital weapons. "Reveal your capabilities now while they cannot coordinate their defenses." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Nations that had secretly maintained space-based weapons platforms in violation of international treaties activated their systems. Japan deployed electromagnetic pulse satellites. Russia revealed kinetic energy weapons. China activated previously unknown laser platforms. The United States launched swarms of autonomous combat drones. None of these weapons would individually pose a serious threat to Moraxian technology, but the sheer diversity of attack vectors overwhelmed their compromised defenses. The aliens could not adapt quickly enough to counter technologies they had never encountered, operating on principles they had never considered. Commander Zholak watched in horrified fascination as his mighty armada, the pride of the Moraxian Empire, found itself crippled by what they had dismissed as a primitive species, their standardized defenses useless against the technological chaos humanity unleashed. "Retreat," he ordered his remaining functional vessels. "Pull back beyond the orbit of Jupiter. We must recalibrate and analyze their attack methods." On the space station, Colonel Reyes allowed herself a moment of satisfaction as the alien fleets scattered their perfect formation, dissolving into a disorganized retreat. Earth had won the first battle, but she harbored no illusions about the war. "They will adapt," she told her team. "The Moraxians will analyze what happened and develop countermeasures. We have perhaps 2 days before they return with new defenses." Sharma studied the sensor readings from the retreating fleet. "They still don't understand what happened. They think we deployed some advanced technology. They haven't realized our strength is our diversity. That gives us an advantage." Lin noted. "They will prepare for the attack that already happened, not the one we're planning next." Earth erupted into frenzied activity in the 24 hours following the Moraxian retreat. Military forces mobilized, civilian engineers volunteered their expertise, government agencies abandoned bureaucratic protocols to work at unprecedented speed, all focused on a single goal: prepare for the aliens' return. Colonel Reyes, now operating from the lunar base, established a direct communication line with every major military power on Earth. Her improvised team expanded to include dozens of specialists from rival nations who would never have collaborated under normal circumstances. Dur Sharma supervised teams of quantum physicists from China, Russia, and America, each developing different approaches to disrupt Moraxian technology, their competing theories creating a tapestry of solutions no single mind could have conceived. "These should not all work," the Chinese lead scientist commented, as they tested contradictory quantum principles. "Side by side, the math contradicts itself." "That is precisely why they will work," Sharma replied, smiling. "Our advantage is incompatibility, not uniformity." Meanwhile, Xublin coordinated with hackers from 6 continents, creating information warfare packages designed to infiltrate and corrupt the Moraxian collective consciousness, each attack vector using different logical structures, cultural references, and coding languages. Marcus Williams converted his entire mining fleet into combat vessels, not by adding traditional weapons, but by transforming their industrial tools into unpredictable attack systems. Laser cutters became weapons, mining explosives became tactical ordnance, hull-breaching equipment became boarding tools. Advanced sensors detected the Moraxian fleet reorganizing beyond Jupiter, their ships undergoing repairs, their systems being recalibrated. Colonel Reyes knew they had precious little time before the aliens returned with adapted defenses. While nations on Earth prepared their conventional forces, Rise implemented the next phase of her plan, not merely to survive the coming attack, but to take the offensive. Our survival depends on unpredictability, she told the assembled military leaders. We cannot win a conventional war against their technology, but we can use that same technology against them. The plan required inserting human operators directly onto Moraxian ships teams equipped with technology designed to interface with alien systems, not to control them, but to introduce elements of chaos directly into their network. From among thousands of volunteers, Rise selected 12 strike teams, each with different specialties, different equipment, different objectives, their only commonality their willingness to undertake what might be a suicide mission. Marcus Williams would lead the Alpha team targeting the Moraxian command vessel, the most dangerous assignment with the highest potential impact. If successful, they would introduce Xia's most aggressive code directly into the heart of the alien network. Sharma created interface devices for each team designed to connect human technology to Moraxian systems, deliberately imperfect connections that would create data corruption the aliens would struggle to filter. Rise knew they were gambling everything on this counterattack. If it failed, Earth would have no defense against the returning Moraxian fleet, whose commanders would show no mercy after being humiliated by what they considered an inferior species. The lunar base shook as the first reports came, and the Moraxian fleet had begun moving toward Earth earlier than expected. Clearly, they had adjusted their systems faster than anticipated. Launch all teams now. Reyes ordered no more time for simulations or preparations. The strike teams boarded their vessels and accelerated toward the approaching alien fleet. On Earth, billions watched the sky, uncertain if they were witnessing humanity's final stand or the beginning of a new chapter in their existence. Either way, they would not surrender without unleashing every ounce of their chaotic, innovative potential against the ordered perfection of the Moraxian Empire. The strike teams accelerated toward the approaching Moraxian fleet, their vessels disguised as debris from the earlier battle, scattered among genuine wreckage to avoid detection. Marcus Williams led the Alpha team aboard a mining shuttle modified with stealth technology salvaged from 5 different nations. Back at Lunar Command, Colonel Reyes monitored their approach, her face illuminated by display screens showing the Moraxian fleet configuration had changed. Their ships, now arranged in a defensive formation, clearly expecting another technological assault. They learned from our first attack, she observed, but they still think conventionally. They expect us to repeat the same strategy. Sharma worked frantically in the adjacent laboratory, making final adjustments to his most ambitious creation, yet a hybrid drive system, combining Moraxian quantum technology with deliberately chaotic human modifications. This should not work, he muttered as the prototype sparked and fluctuated wildly on his workbench. By all known physics, it should collapse into entropy, but instead it generated power outputs exceeding Moraxian standards by 2-fold. The underlying principle defied conventional understanding. The hybrid drive operated not despite its instability, but because of it, harnessing the energy produced at the edge of chaos, a concept the orderly Moraxian mind could not conceptualize. Meanwhile, on Earth, Xu Lin completed her most sophisticated information warfare package, an adaptive algorithm designed to infiltrate the Moraxian collective consciousness, not merely to disrupt their systems, but to introduce doubt into their hive mind. Their evolutionary advantage is perfect communication, she explained to military leaders. Their weakness is they never needed to develop defenses against misinformation from within. The first strike team reached the outer perimeter of the Moraxian fleet, attaching their vessel to a damaged alien scout ship using magnetic clamps. Williams led his team through the airlock using cutting tools to create an entrance. The alien ship interior glowed with blue light, its surfaces covered in flowing symbols, its atmosphere breathable but uncomfortably dense. The team moved quietly toward the central command node, wearing adaptive camouflage that disrupted Moraxian visual frequencies. Across the fleet, 11 other teams executed similar insertions, each targeting different vessel types, each carrying different technological payloads designed to introduce unique disruptions into the Moraxian network. When the teams reached their objectives, they activated their interface devices, connecting Earth technology directly to Moraxian systems, creating deliberate incompatibilities that the alien computers struggled to resolve. On the command ship, Williams placed Sharma's hybrid drive core directly into the power distribution network, while simultaneously uploading Lin's information warfare package into their communication system, creating a perfect storm of hardware and software chaos. The effect rippled through the Moraxian fleet faster than anyone had anticipated, their ships losing formation, their weapons powering down, then up, then down again, their communication network flooding with contradictory commands and false information. In the Lunar Command Center, Colonel Rice watched in amazement as the entire Moraxian attack force began to break apart, not physically but operationally, their perfect coordination shattered by an assault they could not comprehend. The Moraxian collective consciousness experienced something entirely new: fragmentation. Individual ships began operating independently, some retreating, others attacking randomly, others shutting down completely as their commanders lost trust in their own systems. Commander Jolak observed the chaos spreading throughout his fleet with growing horror. The unthinkable was happening. The inferior humans had somehow turned the Moraxians' greatest strength, their unity, against them. "This battle is lost," he transmitted to his remaining functional vessels. "Retreat and regroup beyond Neptune. We must completely reconfigure our approach." As the alien ships began a disorganized withdrawal, Colonel Reyes knew they had gained something: precious time. But she also understood the war was far from over. "The next phase," she announced to her team, "we take the fight to them." 1 week after the Moraxian retreat, a hastily assembled fleet of Earth vessels prepared to launch from lunar orbit, their designs as varied as the nations that built them, a patchwork armada united only by their shared mission to strike at the heart of the Moraxian Empire. Colonel Reyes stood on the bridge of the flagship, the converted civilian cruise liner now housing the command center. Her unlikely team of specialists gathered around her as final preparations were completed. The plan was audacious to the point of insanity, using Dr. Sharma's hybrid drive technology to jump directly into Moraxian territory, bypassing their defensive perimeter to strike at their central command structure, not with conventional weapons, but with information warfare. 17 captured Moraxian vessels had been retrofitted with human technology, their systems deliberately modified to create unpredictable results, their very existence a contradiction the alien mind struggled to process. Military leaders on Earth had objected to the plan, considering it too risky, but Reyes had prevailed by demonstrating one simple fact: the Moraxians would return with overwhelming force. Eventually, Earth could not win a defensive war. Their only hope was to strike at the heart of the Empire. Dr. Sharma monitored the hybrid drives installed throughout the fleet, their energy signatures fluctuating in patterns that defied prediction, the very randomness of their operation making them impossible for Moraxian sensors to track. Su Lin made final adjustments to the information warfare package that would be deployed directly into the Moraxian central network, not merely to disrupt their systems, but to fragment their collective consciousness, introducing concepts alien to their unified mind. "All vessels report ready," Marcus Williams announced from the tactical station, his strike teams distributed throughout the fleet, each prepared for their specific objectives once they reached Moraxian space. Reyes nodded, giving the order that would commit humanity to its most daring gambit: initiate jump. The hybrid drives activated simultaneously, yet asynchronously, creating a quantum field that enveloped the fleet. The stars blurred around them as space itself seemed to fold inward, the impossible physics of the drives, bending reality in ways that should not work yet somehow did. When the disorientation cleared, they found themselves in orbit around a massive artificial structure, the Moraxian Central Command Station, its crystalline surface reflecting the light of an unfamiliar sun, its defensive systems momentarily confused by the unexpected arrival. "Deploy all teams," Reyes ordered immediately as Moraxian vessels began to respond to the intrusion. 17 strike teams launched toward different sections of the command station, each carrying a different version of Lin's information warfare package. The Moraxian defense grid activated, but Williams had anticipated their response. The reproposed alien ships broadcast identification codes that momentarily confused the automated systems, buying precious seconds for the strike teams to reach their objectives. On the command station, the Moraxian collective consciousness registered the intrusion with disbelief. Their most secure facility, the heart of their empire, had been breached by the very species they had dismissed as primitive. The strike teams moved with practiced precision, attaching their interface devices to the station's central nodes, uploading their viral information packages directly into the Moraxian network, while Marcus led the Alpha team toward the central consciousness hub. From the flagship Reyes watched as the Moraxian defense fleet fell into confusion, their perfect coordination shattered as contradictory information flooded their networks, some ships attacking others, some powering down, some broadcasting emergency signals in all directions. The hybrid drives had accomplished what the Moraxians believed impossible. The inferior humans had penetrated to the heart of their empire and were now attacking not with weapons of destruction, but with something far more devastating to a collective consciousness: doubt. On the central station, Marcus reached the consciousness hub, his team securing the area as he activated the final phase of the operation, not to destroy the Moraxians, but to change them fundamentally and permanently. Marcus Williams stood before the pulsating crystal structure of the Moraxian central consciousness hub, its surface rippling with patterns of light that seemed alive, thousands of years of collective memory and unified thought concentrated into a single massive node. His team secured the chamber as he activated the final component of their mission, not a weapon of destruction, but Shia's most sophisticated creation, an adaptive algorithm designed to introduce the concept of diversity directly into the Moraxian collective mind. The interface device connected to the crystal structure, transferring data not as an attack, but as new information, new perspectives, new possibilities. The collective consciousness that had existed in perfect uniformity for millennia suddenly exposed to the beauty of variation. Throughout the command station, similar interfaces activated as other teams completed their objectives, each introducing different elements of human thought into the Moraxian network, not to destroy, but to transform, to teach the value of difference. On the flagship, Colonel Reyes monitored the operation, her screens showing the spread of their information warfare package throughout the Moraxian communication networks, not corrupting but expanding, altering the very foundation of how the aliens processed reality. Ter Sharma watched in fascination as the energy signatures of the Moraxian systems changed, not failing but reorganizing, adapting in ways he had not predicted, the collective consciousness evolving before their eyes. 2 standard Earth weeks later, a Moraxian diplomatic vessel approached the solar system, alone, broadcasting on all frequencies a request for peaceful dialogue. Its commander, none other than Jolak, his demeanor completely transformed from imperious conqueror to cautious diplomat. The peace conference convened aboard a neutral station orbiting Jupiter, representatives from Earth nations meeting with the Moraxian commander, who now spoke not for a unified empire, but for a civilization in transition. We believed absolute uniformity created perfect strength. Jolak acknowledged, his voice carrying subtle inflections it never had before. When faced with your species' endless variations, our perfect system became perfectly predictable. Colonel Reyes led the Earth delegation, her unlikely team seated beside her, as the aliens proposed terms not of surrender but of cooperation, cultural exchange, scientific collaboration, mutual defense. The peace treaty established Earth as an independent system that no Moraxian vessel would approach uninvited, but more importantly, it included terms liberating 17 subjugated species from Moraxian control, allowing them to develop along their own diverse paths. As the document was finalized, Jolak offered a gesture unprecedented in Moraxian history. He removed his ceremonial armor, revealing for the first time the individual beneath the collective identity, a symbolic act signifying the beginning of a new era for his species. News of humanity's victory spread across the galaxy. Representatives from dozens of civilizations arrived in the solar system, some seeking alliance, others offering trade, many simply curious about the species that had accomplished what they had believed impossible. 6 months later, at the newly established Galactic Embassy in Geneva, Colonel Reyes stood with Sharma Lynn and Williams, watching ships from diverse alien civilizations descend through Earth's atmosphere. They expected to find unified strength, she observed, looking at the wildly different craft approaching, but instead they found something far more resilient. Dr. Sharma nodded thoughtfully. Beautiful chaos theory applied to civilization. Perfect order is brittle chaos within structure creates strength. Marcus watched Earth's first official alien visitors land. Think the galaxy is ready for humans spreading amongst the stars, he wondered. Sue smiled as she finalized the translation program for their first formal diplomatic exchange. They have absolutely no idea what's coming their way. In the night sky above them, stars glittered like possibilities in a universe suddenly much larger and more interesting than anyone had imagined. The future unfolding not with perfect precision, but with glorious, unpredictable potential. The end.